Hello guys, right now we're going to create our category system. Let's implement this now. Let's do this. First, we're gonna go to our models.py and create a class for our category, which has a parameter of model. Models.model. We create a variable for our name, and this model should have a character field, like we can assign a max length of maybe 64 will do. And let's create a function constructor wherein this calls for its name. This is a Python's way of describing the class's name when it is called. Oh, we have a typo. Models. Next, we're gonna go to our listings model. Let's be sure to incorporate this recently created category class into our listings. We're gonna create this as category. This will become a foreign key to our listing, and our related name should be listings. Once we're done with that, we're gonna migrate our database. We are encountering an error because this class category is being referenced before Python was able to see. So we're gonna put this on top of our listing. There you go. So Python first reads the class of category, then it was able to reference this because Python codes are usually read top to bottom. After that, let's make migrations and let's take effect our recently created category model. Make migrations and migrate. Now, Django does not auto-create categories for us. We need to add this later on using our Django admin. But first, let's go to our auctions project and register our recently created category. Once we're done with that, we're good to go. And let's go to our admin and let's create up to 3. What are the most common one? Categories for items that are usually used in home. Let's name that as home. Maybe let's create for our electronics. What are others? Maybe fashion will do. Let's save that. Right now we have 3 categories. Oh, let's name this. We have a typo. Oh, the reason why this categories is this kind of spelling because Django automatically creates and puts an S to every table that we have. Since we had created this category as singular with this kind of spelling, every time Django detects and creates new table, it's automatically add an S on its suffix, therefore making it plural. But Django sometimes doesn't know how to make things plural in the right English way. So in this kind of scenarios, we need to tell Django how to pluralize this kind of word. So how we're gonna do that? We're gonna go to our category class and include this kind of meta tag or meta to tell how this verbose name should be called. So originally this will be called as category, but since we need to explicitly say to Django, hey Django, this is the right way to make this category into plural form, so we're telling this as like a meta tag, and this is the word you must try to show when trying to say this is the plural form of categories. There you go. And once we're done with that, we're gonna go again and make migrations and let the meta options on category take place. So once we're done with that, we're just gonna refresh. Oh, again, double S typo. Sorry with that. Oh, I forgot to say that this is plural. Because of that, we need to make migrations again and migrate so that we'll be able to see categories as right spelling. Let's go. So right now we're encountering a problem because we are creating a much complex listing. So right now we have this kind of creation in our listing, and we do manual handling of post requests. So right now, because our form is getting bigger, we need to compress it into a more maintainable code later on. So right now we're gonna create a forms.py and let this form all created here inside our template, it should just be located beside our forms, I mean our views, inside our auctions. After that, we're gonna import our forms from Django. Import forms, import our models from .models. Then we're gonna create a class. Let's call this listing, and this has a parameter of forms that model, and our fields are title, description, starting bid, image URL, and our recently created category. Once we're done with that, we're gonna go to our views.py, go to our create listing, and before we just manually get our post request like this, request that post and the title of the key, but since now we have a form, we're gonna input it first. From that forms, import our listing form. Then we're gonna replace this. Let's change this one and calling our form, where it has a parameter of, and the form is valid. Like, this is a built-in function for Django, and validating forms, we're just calling it and makes our lives easier, and let Django handle the rest for us. If form is valid, we're gonna save our listing that row using form that's saved. Commit false. We're listing that owner is equal to our request, and listing that save. Redirect the index. We don't need this one, it's already handled in the top. We don't need this one because this one already handles this. Else, if this is not a post method, meaning this is a get request, we'll just show our form and call our listing that form, and let our render modify this by telling our render to accept these parameters in our form. Once we're done with that, we're good to go. Oh, we just made some few modifications here and enclose this form into a curly brace. So let's now test our create listing doesn't show. Let's review. Our categories must be stated in our fields in our listing form. Also, our category that we just created must be foreign key for our listing. So we need to call our form here because we don't need this manual, since we are double rendering, because right now we are using forms. My decision is to remove all this manually typed HTML. But the problem here is how about our HTML attributes that we had used inside our HTML here. And let this become like this. In our forms.py, we need to create a widget. So this one handles your customized HTML attributes that you created into this kind of format. So this is where your customized HTML attributes are gonna be put. So once we have that, let's go our create listing, and there you go. Now this just needs a styling of CSS, and we will handle this later. But our create listing, let's try to create one. If this works, let's create an item for home. Let's go for vacuum cleaner, starting with maybe category. Let's go for home and submit this. So we have an error. Our error name false is not defined. Boolean must have capital values. Capital T for true, capital F for false, capital F. Sorry about that. Let's try creating one again. Let's submit. And it's now saved. So let's go to our navbar, our layout. So let's create a div for and for categories ID. Let's try this. Oh, we have not yet created. In our views.py, let's create function and category ID. Category ID. Fetch something. Let's go for our only the active listings. Render. And using our template for put inside our category only the active ones. Once we have that, since we created our views.py, let's also create a route. Let's create our category, categories.html. So we're facing a problem because our categories must always be shown in every kind of view that we created. So it will be a hassle if, for example, I have 4 items in my categories. Then I always try to input these categories in each of the views that we're gonna have. For example, we have so many views that we created. So in all those views, we're gonna copy paste our categories. It will be a prone to error if that's would be the case. So we're gonna use a Django built-in feature called context processor, wherein once we create that kind of context processor, all of our views will gonna contain all the categories that we will input in this context processor. So how are we gonna do that? Let's go. So let's first create a context pre-processor. no, processor, context processors that py in our app directory, in our auctions. Once we have that, we're gonna import from that models our category. Then we're gonna create a function which calls for our categories, and this accepts a parameter of request. So we just simply return using Django's built-in model to call objects.all, meaning it fetches every home, every what do you call this, fashion, electronics data, or whatever category that will be created in the future in this table. So how does that work? In settings.py of our project, we're gonna add another line. So let's call this templates. Then inside this templates, we're gonna create a curly brace, and inside that we're gonna create then dot categories. Sorry about that. A template is already created inside this, so we don't need this one below. We're just gonna copy paste this, our created processor, and our template. Here we're gonna add this, my app is commerce auctions, so plural. The one we have in our template is single s, must be plural. So this one calls categories home. We just properly render this one to our HTML. Our categories into a drop down. We converted our categories into a drop down, but since we're gonna need bootstrap for this, we're gonna need to install bootstrap. We just add bootstrap CDN in top of the head and below the body, before ending of the body. Just check bootstrap docs for this. So right now when we go to categories, we click drop down, we're gonna click the errors because categories is not a valid view function. So what happened is, upon checking category.html, there is this error that I created a while ago, which I forgot to remove. It doesn't need to go back to categories because our categories is clickable and we need as one. We don't need to go back to the category URL itself. Our URL does just need a category and an ID. That's our URL path. So what happens when we click our categories? Everything shows no active listing. So this means our category always triggered because we get an empty file. So what's happening to our business pie in our category? The logic is incorrect. So this happens because we do not need here this. We just need to modify some few things so that our category function works. Ready to filter the object based on category, and we need active listings. We still need this. And what happened is we didn't render. Sorry, this is my bad. We forgot to put our listing inside. Okay, that's why it's not rendering, because you did not put it. My bad. So let's test. So it's going to happen if, there you go, we fetch. So home listing 5 is assigned to this. Since our listing number 5 is our listing 5, if you can check here, we have a category assigned as home. There you go, our categories is now working. Let's go.